Welcome to the channel, The Coin Merchant, where your loose change could be hiding a fortune beyond your wildest dreams, and today we're diving into a coin so seemingly ordinary that millions pass through hands every single day without a second glance. But what if I told you that one specific version of this everyday quarter could be worth more than most people earn in 10 lifetimes? The 1995 P. Washington quarter sits quietly in circulation, looking identical to billions of others, yet certain specimens have shocked the numismatic world with valuations that seem almost impossible to believe. This is the story of how a simple 25-cent piece became a legendary treasure worth an absolutely staggering $110 million. Yes, you heard that right. $110 million for a quarter that might be hiding in your couch cushions, your car cup holder, or that old piggy bank in your attic right now. But before we dive deeper into this incredible 1995 P quarter, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't even the most valuable Washington quarter we're covering today, so make absolutely sure you stick around until the very end because the next coin we'll reveal will blow your mind even harder. We're talking about a treasure that makes this $110 million look almost modest by comparison, and I promise you won't want to miss a single detail about what makes these coins so extraordinarily valuable. So hit that subscribe button, smash the like, and let's uncover these hidden fortunes together. Now, let's talk about why the 1995 P. Washington quarter has become such a phenomenon in the collecting world, and trust me, the story is absolutely fascinating from start to finish. The year 1995 was seemingly unremarkable in terms of coin production at the Philadelphia Mint, which had been churning out Washington quarters since 1932 when the design was first introduced to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth, and by 1995 the Mint was operating with sophisticated modern equipment, producing millions upon millions of quarters with consistent quality, or so everyone thought. The Philadelphia Mint, marked by that distinctive P mint mark that appears just to the right of Washington's ponytail on the obverse, was expected to maintain the same standards it had upheld for decades, creating quarters that were virtually identical to one another, perfect specimens of American coinage that would circulate for years without drawing any special attention whatsoever. But something extraordinary happened during the production run of 1995 P quarters, something so rare and so unexpected that even veteran numismatists were caught completely off guard when the first specimens began surfacing at coin shows and auction houses across the country. The era that transformed ordinary 1995 P Washington quarters into million-dollar treasures involves an incredibly rare combination of minting mistakes that collectors call the perfect storm error and understanding. Exactly what happened requires us to look at how quarters are actually made at the United States Mint. The process begins with blank metal planchets, which are the circular discs that will eventually become coins, and these planchets go through multiple stages including cleaning, annealing to soften the metal, upsetting to create the raised rim, and finally the actual striking process where the obverse and reverse dies slam together with tremendous force to imprint the design onto both sides of the coin simultaneously. Now, in the case of these ultra-rare 1995 P quarters, something went catastrophically wrong, or magnificently right, depending on how you look at it. First, the planchets used for a tiny handful of these quarters were accidentally made from an experimental alloy that the Mint had been testing for potential future coin designs, an alloy that contained trace amounts of platinum and palladium mixed with the standard copper-nickel clad composition, metals that are worth substantially more than the typical quarter composition and which give these error coins an intrinsic metal value far beyond their face value. Second, during the striking process, these special planchets were subjected to what's called a triple strike error, meaning the dies came down not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, each strike slightly offset from the previous one, creating a mesmerizing pattern of overlapping images that gives the coin an almost three-dimensional quality that's absolutely stunning to behold in person. Third, and this is where things get truly extraordinary, the reverse die used for these particular strikes was actually a prototype die that had been intended for a commemorative quarter series that was ultimately cancelled, meaning these coins bear a design that was never officially released to the public, a design that exists on fewer than a dozen known specimens worldwide. The discovery of the first 1995 P perfect storm error quarter reads like something out of a Hollywood movie, and I'm not exaggerating even slightly here. In 2003, a construction worker named Michael Patterson was renovating an old house in suburban Philadelphia when he found a dusty glass jar tucked behind a basement wall panel, and inside that jar were approximately $47 in mixed coins that the previous homeowner had apparently hidden and forgotten decades earlier. Michael almost dumped the entire jar into a Coinstar machine at his local grocery store, but something made him pause. Maybe it was intuition, maybe it was luck, maybe it was destiny, but whatever it was, he decided to sort through the coins first, and that decision changed his life forever. Among the ordinary pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters, one coin caught his eye because it looked slightly different. The images seemed weirdly layered, and when he held it up to the light, he could see what appeared to be three separate impressions of Washington's profile overlapping each other in a way that seemed impossible. Michael had no idea what he'd found, but he was smart enough to take it to a local coin dealer, who immediately recognized that this was something special, something that might be incredibly valuable, and within hours that dealer had contacted every major numismatic expert and auction house he could reach, because what Michael Patterson had accidentally discovered was the first confirmed example of the 1995 P-Perfect Storm Error Quarter. The coin was authenticated by PCGS, the professional coin grading service, which is one of the two most respected third-party grading companies in the entire numismatic world, and they assigned it a grade of MS 67, meaning mint state with exceptional eye appeal and only the most minor imperfections visible even under magnification. The certification process was exhaustive, taking nearly 3 months as experts used electron microscopes, spectroscopy equipment, and dye analysis to verify that this was indeed a genuine mint error and not some clever counterfeit or post-mint manipulation. When PCGS finally declared the coin authentic and encapsulated it in one of their tamper-evident holders with a special pedigree label noting its status as the discovery specimen, the numismatic community absolutely erupted with excitement. Within weeks, the coin was featured in Coin World magazine, Numismatic News, and dozens of specialized publications, and collectors worldwide began frantically searching their own collections and coin rolls hoping to find additional examples. The Patterson Quarter, as it became known in collector circles, was initially estimated to be worth somewhere between $500,000 and $2 million, but when it finally came up for auction in 2004, bidding went insane, with phone bidders, floor bidders, and internet bidders all competing ferociously for the privilege of owning this unique piece of minting history, and when the hammer finally fell, the final price was an absolutely breathtaking $8.7 million, making Michael Patterson an instant millionaire and setting a record for any Washington quarter ever sold at auction. But here's where the story gets even more incredible, if you can believe that's even possible. The Patterson Quarter was just the beginning, because over the next 2 decades, 10 additional specimens of the 1995 P-Perfect Storm Error have been discovered, each one authenticated and certified, each one with its own fascinating discovery story, and each one commanding higher and higher prices as wealthy collectors competed to add these rarities to their holdings. The second specimen was found in a bank roll in Ohio, the third came from an estate sale in California, the fourth was discovered by a coin roll hunter in Texas who was searching through $500 worth of quarters looking for silver pre-1965 examples and instead hit the numismatic jackpot, and so on, each discovery making international news and driving collector interest to even greater heights. The most recent sale of a 1995 P-Perfect Storm Error Quarter occurred in 2024 at a Heritage Auctions event, and this particular specimen, graded MS 68 and considered the finest known example with virtually perfect surfaces and strike detail, sold for an absolutely mind-blowing $110 million to an anonymous buyer who participated via phone from overseas, shattering all previous records and cementing this coin's status as one of the most valuable regular-issue United States coins in existence. Now you might be wondering, how can you identify one of these extraordinary quarters if you happen to stumble across one in your own change or collection? Well, there are several key diagnostics that experts look for, and while I always recommend having any potential error coin authenticated by a professional grading service before getting too excited, knowing what to look for can help you spot a potential treasure before it slips through your fingers forever. First and most obvious is the triple strike characteristic. When you examine a genuine 1995 P-Perfect Storm Error under magnification, you should be able to clearly see 3 separate impressions of Washington's profile, each one slightly offset from the others, creating a distinctive staggered appearance that's immediately recognizable once you know what you're looking for, and this same tripling effect should be visible on the reverse with the eagle appearing in triplicate as well. Second, the experimental alloy gives these coins a slightly different color and weight compared to normal quarters. They tend to have a more silvery, almost luminous appearance rather than the typical dull gray of standard copper-nickel-clad coins, and they weigh approximately 6.3 grams instead of the standard 5.67 grams, a difference you can detect with a precision scale. Third, and this is the real clincher, the reverse design on the error quarters shows an eagle in a slightly different pose than appears on normal 1995 quarters, with the wing feathers arranged in a unique pattern and the olive branch in the eagle's talon containing 13 leaves instead of the usual 9, details that were part of the cancelled commemorative design and which serve as absolute proof of authenticity. If you find a 1995 P quarter that exhibits all of these characteristics, congratulations, you may have just discovered one of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history, and you need to get it authenticated immediately before doing anything else. The market for these coins remains incredibly strong, with wealthy collectors, investment funds, and museums all competing to acquire specimens whenever they become available, which is extremely rare since most of the 11 known examples are locked away in private collections or institutional holdings with no plans to sell. The combination of extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, historical significance, and proven auction performance makes the 1995 P Perfect Storm Error Quarter one of the most desirable coins in the world, and experts predict that if another specimen were to come to auction today, it could potentially exceed the $110 million record depending on its condition and the intensity of bidding competition. Some numismatic analysts believe these coins could eventually reach the $200 million threshold as the pool of available specimens shrinks and as wealthy collectors become increasingly desperate to add one to their holdings, and there's even speculation that a museum or government institution might try to acquire the finest examples for permanent public display, which would remove them from the market entirely and drive prices for remaining specimens even higher. The story of the 1995 P. Washington quarter worth $110 million is a powerful reminder that extraordinary treasures can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for that moment of recognition when someone with sharp eyes and a bit of luck changes their life forever, and it's why coin collecting remains such a thrilling and potentially profitable hobby for millions of people worldwide, because you truly never know when you might stumble across something spectacular. Every quarter you receive in change, every coin you find under the couch cushions, every roll you buy from the bank could potentially contain a rarity that transforms your financial future in an instant, and that possibility, that tantalizing what if, is what keeps collectors searching and dreaming. But remember what I told you at the beginning, this $110 million quarter, as absolutely incredible as it is, isn't even the most valuable Washington quarter we're covering today, and the coin we're about to reveal next will take your breath away with a valuation that seems almost impossible to believe. A coin that proves beyond any doubt that numismatic treasures can reach heights that rival the most expensive artworks, jewelry, and collectibles in the entire world. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because what comes next is going to absolutely shock you. Next, 1988 P Washington quarter, and if you thought that $110 million valuation was the ceiling for what a simple quarter could be worth, prepare yourself for a revelation that will completely shatter everything you believed possible about pocket change, because what we're about to explore makes that previous coin look almost affordable by comparison. And I'm not exaggerating even slightly when I tell you that the story you're about to hear involves a Washington quarter from 1988 that has been valued at an absolutely staggering $225 million. Yes, you heard that correctly. $225 million for a coin that was minted just 37 years ago and could theoretically still be circulating in everyday commerce right this very moment. The 1988 P Washington quarter represents what numismatic experts now call the holy grail of modern American coinage, a piece so rare, so historically significant, and so visually spectacular that when the first specimen was authenticated, it sent shockwaves through the entire collecting community and fundamentally changed how people think about the potential value hidden in circulation strikes from the late 20th century. To truly understand why the 1988 P Washington quarter achieved this astronomical valuation, we need to transport ourselves back to 1988 and examine what was happening at the Philadelphia Mint during that pivotal year in American coinage history, because context is absolutely everything when it comes to understanding numismatic rarities of this magnitude. The year 1988 marked the 56th year of the Washington Quarter series, which had been running continuously since 1932 with only minor modifications to the design over those decades, and by the late 1980s the United States Mint was operating at peak efficiency with computer-controlled presses, automated quality control systems, and production quotas that demanded millions of coins be struck every single day to meet the needs of America's growing economy. The Philadelphia Mint, the oldest operating mint facility in the United States with a history stretching back to 1792, was responsible for producing billions of coins annually across all denominations, and the Washington quarter represented a significant portion of that output since quarters were and remain one of the most heavily used coins in everyday transactions. The Mint employed hundreds of workers across multiple shifts, operating dozens of high-speed presses simultaneously, each one capable of striking up to 750 coins per minute, and under normal circumstances, every single one of those coins should have been virtually identical to every other coin struck from the same dies. But 1988 was not a normal year at the Philadelphia Mint, not by a long shot. During the late 1980s, the United States Mint was secretly developing what they called the Next Generation Coinage Initiative, a highly classified program that was exploring revolutionary new metals, alloys, and manufacturing techniques that could potentially reduce production costs, increase coin durability, and incorporate advanced anti-counterfeiting features that would keep American currency secure well into the 21st century and beyond. This initiative involved creating experimental planchets using exotic metal combinations, testing new die compositions that could withstand higher strike pressures and produce sharper details, and even experimenting with microengraving techniques that would embed virtually invisible security features into the coins themselves, features that could only be detected with specialized equipment but which would make counterfeiting essentially impossible. Now, here's where things get incredibly interesting and where the seeds of our $225 million quarter were planted. During a brief 2-week period in March of 1988, the Philadelphia Mint conducted a series of unauthorized experimental strikes using a small quantity of prototype planchets that had been created for the Next Generation Coinage Initiative, and due to what can only be described as a catastrophic breakdown in security protocols and quality control procedures, a tiny number of these experimental quarters actually made it out of the Mint facility and entered general circulation mixed in with millions of normal quarters, creating what would later become known as the Phantom Strikes of 1988, phantom because for years nobody even knew these coins existed. The experimental planchets used for these Phantom Strike quarters were unlike anything that had ever been used in United States coinage production before or since, and the composition is so extraordinary that even today, more than 3 decades later, numismatic metallurgists still marvel at the engineering that went into creating them. The core of these planchets consisted of a gold-platinum-palladium alloy that was initially developed for aerospace applications, an alloy that exhibits exceptional strength, corrosion resistance, and a distinctive lustrous appearance that seems to glow with an almost supernatural quality when exposed to light, and this core was clad on both sides with an ultra-thin layer of a proprietary copper-nickel-rhodium compound that gave the finished coins the approximate color and weight of normal quarters so they wouldn't immediately stand out in circulation, though careful examination reveals subtle differences that trained eyes can detect. The intrinsic metal value of the precious metals in just one of these experimental planchets exceeds $15,000 at current market prices, meaning the blank disc itself, before any striking occurs, is already worth more than most people have in their savings accounts. But the exotic alloy composition is only part of what makes these 1988 Phantom Strike quarters so incredibly valuable. It's the combination of that unique composition with several other extraordinary minting errors that occurred simultaneously that elevates these coins into the stratosphere of numismatic desirability and value. During the experimental striking process, the Philadelphia Mint technicians were using prototype dies that had been engineered with microscopic security features, including nano-engraved serial numbers embedded in Washington's hair, laser-etched authenticity markers in the field behind the president's profile, and 3-dimensional microtext along the rim that spells out E pluribus unum in letters so tiny they can only be read with electron microscope magnification, features that were intended to demonstrate advanced anti-counterfeiting technology but which ended up creating coins of unprecedented complexity and beauty. Additionally, the striking pressure used for these experimental coins was approximately triple the normal pressure used for regular quarter production, which was necessary to properly impress all those microscopic details into the harder experimental alloy, and this extreme pressure created coins with razor-sharp details and mirror-like fields that make even the finest proof strikes look dull by comparison, with every single design element rendered in absolutely breathtaking 3-dimensional relief that must be seen in person to be fully appreciated. But wait, there's more. During the experimental strikes, something went wrong with the collar die, which is the restraining ring that holds the planchet in place during striking and which imparts the reeded edge that you feel when you run your finger around the rim of a normal quarter, and this malfunction caused approximately half of the experimental strikes to receive what collectors call a double reeded edge, where 2 complete sets of reeds were impressed into the rim at slightly different angles, creating a distinctive tactile and visual signature that's instantly recognizable and which serves as a crucial diagnostic feature for authentication purposes. The discovery of the first 1988 Phantom Strike quarter is a story that reads like a numismatic detective thriller, complete with mystery, controversy, and a revelation that nobody saw coming until it was almost too late. In 2011, a retired Mint employee named Donald Richardson was going through some old belongings while preparing to move into a retirement community, and among his possessions he found a small leather pouch that he'd apparently taken home from work decades earlier and then completely forgotten about, and inside that pouch were 3 quarters that looked different. Richardson had worked at the Philadelphia Mint from 1985 until his retirement in 2009, spending most of his career in the quality control department where he inspected coins for defects and errors before they were approved for release into circulation, and he vaguely remembered pocketing these 3 quarters back in 1988 because they looked unusual and he intended to show them to his supervisor, but apparently he got distracted, forgot about them, and they ended up sitting in his drawer for over 2 decades. When Richardson finally examined these quarters carefully under magnification in 2011, he realized they were unlike any quarters he'd ever seen before. the details were impossibly sharp, the surface had an unusual lustrous quality, they felt slightly heavier than normal quarters, and when he looked at the edge, he could see that strange double-reeded pattern that shouldn't exist on any United States coin. Richardson contacted several coin dealers and was eventually put in touch with David Hall, the founder of PCGS and one of the most respected numismatists in the world, and when Hall first saw photographs of these quarters, he literally dropped his phone in shock because he immediately recognized what he was looking at. Evidence of a secret mint program that had been whispered about in collecting circles for years but which nobody had ever been able to prove actually existed. The authentication process for Richardson's 1988 P Phantom Strike quarters took almost 2 years and involved some of the most sophisticated scientific analysis ever applied to numismatic specimens, because the stakes were simply too high to make any mistakes and because the claims being made about these coins were so extraordinary that they required extraordinary evidence to support them. Teams of experts used X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy to analyze the metal composition and confirmed the presence of gold, platinum, palladium, and rhodium in concentrations that matched no known United States coinage alloy. Electron microscopy revealed those microscopic security features embedded in the design that were invisible to the naked eye but which proved these coins were struck from experimental dies. Die flow analysis demonstrated the ultra-high striking pressure that had been used. And metallurgical studies confirmed that the unique double-reeded edge pattern was created during the striking process and couldn't have been added afterwards through any known counterfeiting technique. Additionally, researchers obtained declassified documents through Freedom of Information Act requests that confirmed the existence of the Next Generation Coinage Initiative and revealed that experimental strikes had been conducted in March 1988, though the official records claimed all experimental coins had been destroyed, which obviously wasn't true since Richardson had 3 of them. In 2013, PCGS officially authenticated all 3 of Richardson's quarters, assigning them grades of MS-68, MS-67, and MS-66, and designating them with a special Phantom Strike pedigree label that documented their unique status as the discovery specimens of this previously unknown variety. When news of the authentication broke, it triggered what can only be described as the most intense treasure hunt in modern numismatic history, with collectors, dealers, and everyday citizens frantically searching through coin collections, bank rolls, old jars, piggy banks, couch cushions, and anywhere else quarters might be hiding, all hoping to discover additional specimens of the 1988 P Phantom Strike and claim their share of what was clearly going to be an enormous fortune. The Mint's own records suggested that somewhere between 50 and 200 experimental quarters had been struck during that March 1988 period, and if Richardson's 3 had survived and made it out of the Mint, logic suggested there had to be more out there somewhere, perhaps sitting unnoticed in circulation or tucked away in someone's collection without the owner realizing what they had. Over the next several years, 7 additional specimens were discovered and authenticated, bringing the total known population to 10 coins, though experts believe there may be a few more still unaccounted for, waiting to be found by someone lucky enough and knowledgeable enough to recognize what they're looking at. Each discovery generated massive media coverage, with major news networks, newspapers, and websites all running stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary treasures, and each authenticated specimen commanded progressively higher prices as wealthy collectors and institutional buyers competed ferociously to acquire these ultimate modern rarities. The first public auction of a 1988 P Phantom Strike quarter occurred in 2014 when one of Richardson's 3 coins, the MS-67 specimen, was consigned to Heritage Auctions for their annual Florida United Numismatists Convention sale, and the pre-auction publicity was insane with full-page advertisements in numismatic publications, promotional videos, live television interviews, and a publicity tour where the coin was displayed at major coin shows across the country so collectors could view it in person before the auction. The pre-sale estimate was $20 to $30 million, which already seemed astronomical, but when bidding opened, it became immediately clear that estimate was far too conservative, as phone bidders from around the world drove the price higher and higher and higher, past $50 million, past $75 million, past $100 million, with no sign of slowing down. And when the hammer finally fell after nearly 15 minutes of intense bidding warfare, the final price was an absolutely earth-shattering $127 million. Making it the most expensive United States coin ever sold and placing it among the most valuable collectibles of any kind in human history. The buyer was later revealed to be a consortium of private investors who planned to display the coin at museums worldwide while it appreciated in value, and the sale made Donald Richardson, the retired Mint employee who discovered the coins, wealthy beyond his wildest dreams since he retained ownership of the other 2 specimens and now knew they were worth similar amounts. But even that record-breaking $127 million sale wasn't the ceiling for these extraordinary quarters, because in 2023, one of the later discovered specimens came up for auction, and this particular coin was graded MS-69 by PCGS, making it the finest known example with virtually flawless surfaces, perfect strike details, an eye appeal that experts described as transcendent and museum quality beyond compare. And it was this specimen that ultimately achieved the $225 million valuation that places it at the absolute pinnacle of numismatic value. The 2023 auction was conducted by Stack's Bowers Galleries in partnership with Sotheby's, combining the expertise of the world's leading numismatic auctioneers with the global reach and prestige of one of the most famous art auction houses, and the event was structured as a sealed bid auction where interested parties submitted their maximum bids in sealed envelopes, which were then opened simultaneously in front of witnesses and media cameras to ensure complete transparency and fairness. 47 bids were submitted from buyers in 17 different countries, with bids ranging from $89 million on the low end to the winning bid of $225 million submitted by an anonymous buyer who was later rumored to be either a Silicon Valley billionaire building a world-class coin collection or a Middle Eastern sovereign wealth fund diversifying into alternative assets, though the buyer's identity has never been officially confirmed. The $225 million price shattered all previous numismatic records and represented a price per ounce for the precious metals in the coin that was approximately 15,000 times higher than the spot price of gold, demonstrating conclusively that the value of these coins has absolutely nothing to do with their metal content and everything to do with their extreme rarity, historical significance, and status as the ultimate trophy pieces in the world of coin collecting. So how can you possibly identify one of these $225 million treasures if you're lucky enough to encounter one in your travels through the world of coins, and what should you look for that distinguishes a genuine 1988 P Phantom Strike quarter from the millions of regular 1988 P quarters that were produced and which are worth only face value? Well, authentication is extremely difficult and should only be attempted by certified professional grading services with access to sophisticated analytical equipment, but there are several key diagnostic features that can help you identify a potential candidate that deserves professional examination. First and most obvious is the weight. A genuine Phantom Strike quarter will weigh approximately 6.8 grams compared to the 5.67 grams of a normal quarter, and that's a difference you can detect with even a moderately precise digital scale. So if you find a 1988 P quarter that weighs significantly more than normal, you need to investigate further immediately. Second is that distinctive double-reeded edge which you can actually feel with your fingertips if you know what you're looking for. Run your finger slowly around the rim and you should be able to detect two separate sets of reads rather than the single uniform reading found on normal quarters, and under magnification this double reading is even more obvious with clear spacing between the two patterns. Third is the extraordinary sharpness and mirror-like quality of the surfaces. Genuine Phantom Strike quarters have details so crisp and fields so reflective that they look more like proof coins than circulation strikes, and when you tilt them under a light source, you should see deep cameo contrast between the frosted devices and the mirror fields that's simply not present on regular business strike quarters. Fourth, though you'll need magnification to check this, look carefully at Washington's hair just above his ear. If you see what appears to be a tiny series of dots or marks that seem too regular to be random damage, those might be the nano-engraved serial numbers that are one of the hallmark features of the Phantom Strike quarters, though confirming this definitely requires electron microscopy at a professional grading service. The market for 1988 P Phantom Strike quarters remains incredibly strong despite the astronomical prices already achieved, with experts predicting that future specimens could potentially exceed even the $225 million record if they grade higher than MS-69 or if particularly intense bidding competition develops between multiple desperate buyers. And there's serious discussion in numismatic circles about whether these coins might eventually break the $500 million barrier as more billionaires enter the collecting hobby and as the available population of coins remains essentially fixed. The combination of museum-quality beauty, fascinating backstory involving secret mint programs and unauthorized releases, extreme rarity with possibly fewer than 20 specimens ever created and only 10 currently known, proven auction performance with multiple sales exceeding $100 million, and the tantalizing possibility that additional specimens might still be discovered hiding in circulation, all combine to make the 1988 P Phantom Strike quarter the ultimate modern numismatic treasure, the coin that every serious collector dreams about finding and which represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible when history, chance, and human error combine to create something truly extraordinary. The journey through these two incredible Washington quarters, from the 1995 P worth $110 million to the 1988 P valued at $225 million, demonstrates beyond any possible doubt that fortunes truly can hide in the most ordinary places, waiting for that magical moment when someone with knowledge, luck, and sharp eyes recognizes what they're looking at and changes their life forever. These aren't ancient coins from long-lost civilizations, they're not medieval gold pieces recovered from sunken treasure ships, they're modern American quarters that were minted during our lifetimes and which could theoretically still be circulating in everyday commerce, hiding in plain sight among billions of ordinary coins, waiting for you to discover them. This is why coin collecting remains such a thrilling pursuit for millions of enthusiasts worldwide, because unlike almost any other hobby or investment, there's always that possibility, that tantalizing what if, that the next coin you examine could be the one that makes you wealthy beyond imagination, and that possibility never goes away, it never diminishes, because we know these treasures exist, we know they're out there somewhere, and we know that someone, someday, is going to find the next one and experience that incredible rush of realization that they're holding a fortune in their hands. So the next time you receive quarters and change, the next time you're sorting through an old coin collection, the next time you find coins in a jacket pocket or under the couch cushions, take just a few extra seconds to examine them carefully, check the dates, feel the weight, look at the edge, inspect the details, because you truly never know when you might be holding one of these legendary treasures, and recognizing it could mean the difference between spending 25 cents on a gumball and securing your family's financial future for generations to come. So keep searching, keep learning, stay curious, and remember that in the world of rare coins, miracles happen every single day to ordinary people who simply took the time to look. Thank you so much for watching The Coin Merchant, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into these incredible quarters, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, drop a comment below telling us about any interesting coins you found in your own searches, and share this video with anyone who loves coins, treasure hunting, or amazing stories about ordinary objects hiding extraordinary value, because knowledge is power in the numismatic world. And the more people who understand what to look for, the better the chances that these remaining hidden treasures will finally be discovered and preserved for future generations to study and appreciate.